Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is KarQ and welcome to the Predator training room for Overwatch. In today's segment, we're going to cover what to do during downtime to give you and your team a competitive advantage. Let's get started. To begin, let's define what downtime means in the context of Overwatch. Downtime is any period of time in a game where there is no active team fighting. Depending on which side you're on, this could be the time where the offensive team is grouping up to make a push, or when the defensive team is setting up in positions for a hold. We're going to go over what you and your team can do on both sides of the map during this time. For attackers, the first thing you should be prioritizing at the end of a winning team fight is looking for staggered enemies to kill who have a close respawn in order to build uncontested ultimate charge and delay the defending team from setting up in positions due to the staggered deaths and respawn distance timing. That was a mouthful, so let me show you an example. Let's say your team is close to pushing the payload to the checkpoint on the first phase of Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is your team comp. This is the enemies, and slowly, one by one, the enemy team is going down. The team fight is secured and you have 4 alive and the payload reaches the checkpoint. What should happen now in this downtime is that one team member should stay on the payload and the others should go forward and finish off any enemies that died early in the previous team fight and ended up respawning in the basement as opposed to the new respawn point. This downtime tactic applies to all the hybrid and payload maps and is used 99% of the time in high-ranked competitive and professional matches. For the Assault and King of the Hill maps, respawn points are static, so this doesn't apply here. However, you can still stagger deaths as a general tactic, but we'll save that for another video. Another downtime strategy is that attacking teams should be looking to scout for as much information as possible in order to learn about the defensive team's setup, positioning, and hero switches. It is not ideal for all 6 members to stay on the objective as it gives enemies the time and space to set up for a defensive hold. This is sort of like a continuation of the respawn point staggers as mentioned before, except now that there are no more enemies to stagger, the strategy here is to have 1 to 3 teammates on the objective while the others stay pushed up a little, but not too far that they're completely isolated. Doing this lets them scan out the long sight lines for who's coming out and allows them to potentially do some poke damage if they have long range, such as Hanzo, or to build some energy as Zarya. Moreover, creating this presence in space can potentially deter enemies from moving into certain defensive positions. For example, if I'm slightly pushed up as Junkrat here on King's Row 2nd phase, I can spam my grenades into this little hallway and prevent enemies from moving along up here and gaining the high ground on us. Another example is sending a Biotic Orb as Mora into corners and looking for any hit markers to see if enemies are waiting around corners. Having as much intel on what the enemy is doing at all times reduces the chances of your team being surprised and gives you the best possible chance of winning team fights. Now let's move on to how the defenders should spend their downtime. The most efficient use of downtime for defenders after a chaotic team fight is to reset up in positions that can effectively scout each major pathway that attackers can use. Let's give an example for each of the map types. For Assault, let's take Hanamura Point B. Attackers usually come up from top left, through the main entrance, and a few mobile heroes can potentially cross the gap and flank through the right side. At the end of a team fight, use this downtime to send some teammates near the windows to see if the attackers are grouping up top, heading towards main, or jumping over to the right side. For a King of the Hill map, let's say Nepal, the strategy here during downtime is to be able to keep your eyes on the primary choke point while having a teammate keep their eyes and ears out for flanking enemies. For payload, let's look at Dorado 2nd phase, and we typically spend the downtime getting immobile teammates back up on the high ground above church and having a teammate or two stay in the back end of the church to see if anyone's trying to sneak by the flank. Finally, for a hybrid map, let's say Hollywood Point B, having a teammate or two up on top of the saloon can help scout out if attackers are going to push through the main street, and having a mobile hero such as Tracer playing behind Bank can help detect if they're going to approach from back there. Now that we've covered attacking and defending tactics you can execute during downtime, I want to quickly end the segment off with a general communicative tip that I would advise all players to do during downtime, and that is calling out what ultimates were used in the previous team fight and what potential ultimates the enemies have at their disposal for the upcoming fight. A simple call out that their Zarya probably has grab to your teammates is much more helpful than you think. What this does is prime your team's mind to anticipate ultimates, which can completely affect the way your team approaches the next fight. If you ever wondered how some of the top players are able to pull off insane reactive plays, the secret is in the psychology of mentally preparing yourself for a signal. It becomes infinitely easier to defense matrix or deflect a graviton surge from the enemy if you were already prepared and expecting it to come out. Anticipation will help with your reaction time and lower the chances of you being caught by surprise. Although callouts are great at every stage of a match, They are more effective during downtime because your teammates are more likely to listen and acknowledge it when they aren't distracted by active team fighting. Hopefully this gave you some insight on what to do during downtime to prepare for every team fight. I'm KarQ with the Predator Training Room. Until next time.